Alright, so the history of Burma, in a nutshell. Britain was in charge of Burma until Aung San, who was Aung San Suu Kyi's father, coordinated with the Japanese to get Britain out of Burma. While that happened, they double-crossed the Japanese and took control of Burma. They made a promise to all of the ethnic groups that if they help get Britain out of Burma, that they have 10 years to see if the Union will work, and if they don't like it, they can leave the Union. Unfortunately, a man by the name of Ne Win took over, killed Aung San, assassinated him, and in 10 years did not allow any of the ethnic groups to leave the Union of Burma. It was a brutal dictatorship all the way up until the 80s, and in 1988 huge demonstrations throughout all of Burma were occurring. At that time there was a change in leadership, and Than Shwe took over, and in 1990 there was a legitimate democratic election held by the regime and the National League for Democracy, whose main spokesperson is Aung San Suu Kyi. None of the leaders of the NLD were allowed to campaign. They were all being held under house arrest leading up to the election. Even though they were under house arrest, they still won 82% of the vote, 82% of the seats in parliament. The Than Shwe and the government at that time, known as the State Law and Order Restoration Council, or SLORC, didn't acknowledge the vote as being legitimate and placed almost all of the politicians in prison. They were put under house arrest as well. Since then, Aung San Suu Kyi has been under house arrest for 11 of the last 17 years. The people in Burma have been forced into labor camps. They've been forced out of their villages. Last year, 3,000 villages were burned and destroyed. There's an oil company, an American oil company called Unocal, and a French one named Total that are building a pipeline. And there are egregious human rights abuses all throughout Burma. And right now, one of the reasons why Burma is one of the most important countries in the world to bring democracy to is four main things. They've had a democratic election where the people spoke. They wanted Aung San Suu Kyi and the National League for Democracy to run the country, and the government did not transfer power over. The second thing is Aung San Suu Kyi supports a non-violent opposition to this brutal dictator. And if we as an international community support the Burmese people and their non-violent struggle, that gives a message to the rest of the world that if you are peaceful in your opposing a military dictatorship, that the international community will come to help and will do something to bring democracy to your country. The third thing is all of the ethnic groups, the Mon, the Shan, the Kachin, the Karenni, the Karen, the Burmans, they have all agreed to have the National League for Democracy, Aung San Suu Kyi's party, lead the Union of Burma. It is not like other countries where there are other sects that don't have an agreement. In Burma, they do have an agreement. The ethnic groups will not create a civil unrest. The fourth thing is Aung San Suu Kyi is a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, and she is the only Peace Prize, Nobel Prize winner to be under house arrest. And there are other Nobel Peace Prize laureates that have come to make statements, public statements, in support of Aung San Suu Kyi, in support of her struggle, and to put pressure on the United Nations and the international community to help Burma. One of the reasons it's called, we refer to it as Burma and not Myanmar, because the only government that has the authority to change the name of its country is a legitimate government. It was Myanmar at first, before Britain took it over. Britain changed the name to Burma, and now these dictators want to change it back to Myanmar, but they are not a legitimate government. So by calling it Myanmar, you are legitimizing a dictatorship. So it is called Burma. On to the world record. So, the United States Campaign for Burma has an event every year in recognition of Aung San Suu Kyi's birthday on the 19th of June. Last year, over 270 events happened in 13 countries, and it was to put pressure on the United Nations to get Burma on the UN Security Council's permanent agenda. And last September, we've been doing this for 10 years, last September, finally, the UN put Burma on the Security Council's permanent agenda, and this is a great success for a non-profit grassroots organization. This year, we are trying to put pressure on the United Nations for a resolution against Burma. A resolution was made by the United States last January, but it wasn't. We need 7 votes out of 15, and we didn't get it with China, Russia, and South Africa against the resolution. The U.S. Campaign for Burma is having this event, and we do a world record event. Last year we went 116 hours reading things from Aung San Suu Kyi's interview to other human rights literature, things from Gandhi, and yes, a Journal of Positive Futures, some positive human rights reading, as well as some fun stuff like Monty Python.
Not necessarily. I could be arguing in my spare time.
And when the kids came, we did some Shel Silverstein and Dr. Seuss. The event this year is from June 14th to the 19th. We didn't make it last year because some of the video evidence was not correctly done. So that's why we're having this meeting here. I thank you very much for coming. Please stay and sign up. Commit yourself to one of these times, a 4-hour period if you can, a 1-hour period if you can, between the days of June 14th and June 19th. Thanks again.
Makes much more sense to make it accept the fact that it has an intelligent, upright government, along with an excellent educational system. I think we're getting our values and equations wrong. But Dr. Sue, isn't the situation a bit more insidious? It might be true that the Singaporean government is not corrupt in an overt sense. But when you consider the fact that Singapore is one of the largest investors in Schwartz economy, where they nearly $170 billion